Hey guys, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and we are doing day 2 of our Stronger Bond workshop, the signs. So, just a quick little hi, how are you, from me. I'm Katie, I'm the head coach here at Equestrian Movement. We had an awesome first day with Sarah last night. So Sarah and I co-founded Equestrian Movement. And she's the brains and I'm the coach. She does all of the techie stuff, which I can't get my head around, and I do all of the coaching stuff and get to play ponies all day. Lucky me, right? So a little bit about me, if for our new people who haven't seen me yet. I have been riding for 28 years. Don't want to give my age away too much. Been riding for 28 years, teaching for 16 years, and I just bloody love it. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. I am kind of at the point now where I actually enjoy teaching more than I enjoy riding. Blasphemy, right? But I just love, those aha moments where horse and rider synchronize and unite in movement. And because I know how amazing that feel is for me, being able to provide that and facilitate that for others to understand and how to work with these beautiful creatures is just as rewarding as me getting to do it myself with the horses that I have on training and my little team. So it's been a pretty big journey for us. We started this Stronger Bond workshop, I think, maybe a year and a half ago, I think. We started the Stronger Bond workshop about a year and a half ago, and I was 2 months out of having my first baby boy, and Sarah was like, let's do this, it sounds amazing. I was like, okay, let's do it. And it's been incredible. It's been such an amazing, life-changing experience. Hi, Sarah, for me, but I know even for you guys to, join in on this process and grow with us the way we have, the way that this group has allowed us to be able to take a step back from our tried and true exercises and our training our horses and really focus on building that connection and that bond with our horses first and foremost, rather than doing the exercises to build the bond. And I think that's probably where, horse training in itself has kind of gone a little bit AWOL, is that we forget that the connection and the relationship that we're building with our horses is the real key and the real purpose, more so than using the exercises to build that relationship. So I can see some of you guys jumping on. Say hi. Tell me where you're from. I want to know if you're living the replay life, because it's 3 a.m. where you are. #replay. We still want to get to know you. We still want to see you guys and learn about you and your ponies. And the more you talk to me, the more I get to know about who you are and who your horses are and how we can help you. So the more questions that come in and the more help you ask for, the more we can help you. And the more you actively participate in this live and then in our homework threads, the better we can support you and your goals with building bigger and better relationships with your horse. So Sarah, I have Facebook on in the background. If something goes hinky on my end, because we know I'm so useless with tech sometimes, you can DM me in Messenger and I will see it. So another fun story. I'm allergic to horses. So ridiculous, right? So tonight, the teary eyes and the runny nose has been because I've been out playing ponies all afternoon and now I'm allergic. So sorry about it. Hi Karen from Melbourne. I see Pam. Hey Pam. Hi Lucy. So fun to see you guys here. I got a bit of FOMO last night watching Sarah host the live. I was like, oh, I want to be doing it. But I had so much fun listening to it. It's always really nice to see, the way that people interpret my trainings, because it's all perception, right? Like I can have my experience and my experiences with my horses and my experiences with my students, but it's the perception that I interpret it as. So I really love watching you guys and how you put your own little spin on our trainings, because it helps me better understand what I'm doing as well. So it was really fun to talk to you guys last night and see how you were taking the information in. Oh, Lucy, you haven't done your homework yet. That's okay. Speaking of homework, I really enjoyed reading your comments on the action item today and last night. I really liked how many of you are so self-aware of what you need to be working on to support your horses. So I love seeing so many comments about being more present, being more in the moment. Lots of you guys want to understand your horse's body language more, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So excited to help you on that. And being consistent, confident, relaxed, like such good answers. I love that, you have that self-awareness that if you want calm, confident, relaxed, consenting, willing horses, like you have to meet them halfway and bring them the energy that allows them to be that for you. So really enjoyed watching your homework notes. One of the things that a lot of you guys were saying was being present and in the moment, and that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight in the signs, but we're going to be talking about it from our horse's perspective. So it's really nice to see you guys being aware of the fact that you need to be present as well. It's really easy to go down to the barn and, checking off your mental to-do list, and your horse is just part of that to-do list. And so, you're running through catching, saddling, quick ride, because don't have time to do anything too much with them, and then feed, and then we got to go do the grocery shopping and prepare dinner and rah, rah, rah. Just that mental load that we take down to the horses means that we can be disconnected ourselves and distracted. Excuse my allergies. It can mean that we are distracted and disconnected ourselves, and I do see that a lot with my students is, they'll kind of be looking around, not really thinking about what their horse is doing, and meanwhile their horse is like testing the contact to see if they're gonna, try something on, or completely distracted themselves and like gonna be super spooky because the connection isn't there. So it's definitely really good for you guys to be so self-aware there. So before we get into tonight's training, thanks Sarah for such a good night last night, talking about why you're the best person for your horse. And key takeaway was that it's because we can provide them the emotional support. So trainers, have the experience that can help you cue trainings in, and maybe help clear up communication issues, or maybe get a couple of tricks sort of working for you that maybe you're not coordinating, because coordinating is such a big piece of the puzzle. But really what we can do for our horses is be there as their emotional buffering between, their learning experience and how they're coping with their environment, and we can kind of buffer that for them to show them how to cope with that process. So that is, if you guys don't figure out anything else from this training, I hope that has really been an important takeaway for you guys. So we do have our workshop notes, and we have our homework notes. Those workshop notes are just like our key takeaways that we really want you to acknowledge what we're talking about, because I don't know if you can tell, but we can go on tangents. So we want to make sure that you guys are getting the key takeaways out of these trainings, and we want them to be actionable. We don't want you to sit here binging this content, being like, yeah, this sounds amazing, and then just like not doing anything about it. We want you to take action from what we're doing, because action moves the needles, gets us results. If you're listening and you're enjoying it, like awesome, that's good. But let's take action on what you're learning, and let's build those relationships with your horses and get that bond stronger so that you can kick those bigger goals that require, really strong relationships and really strong, deep levels of consent. So your homework notes are what we believe to be your key takeaways from our training. You may pull out your own, so feel free to write additional notes down as you go. We do talk about different temperaments, so there might be something like an experience that we share that particularly resonates for you and your horse, and you might want to take some notes on that personality type, which will be different for different people. So we are going to be live every night this week, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, so set the clock. If you're live with us, you can ask questions. If you're not live with us, you can still ask questions and we'll answer them. A couple of you have already said I will put your answers into our Q&A, which is on Sunday. So these are like, more horse-specific traits. lastminute@lucy.com, love it. So these are more horse-specific traits. So what we try to do with this workshop is give like those broad brushstrokes of how, we can go about supporting horses the best way that we can. But we understand that your horse is unique, and so are you, and you all have your own individual personalities, and we may need to adapt our strategies that we are using to work with our horses to make it more kind of fit that lock and key mold of personality type to ensure that it's actually beneficial to our horse. Because we don't want to be just like using the same exercises with like a flighty, spooky Arab as we're using with a heavy draft horse. I don't know if I was going to say dopey or doughy, whichever way we want to go. A heavy, slow-thinking draft horse. We're not going to be using the same exercises. So being able to adapt, these broad brushstrokes training principles to the different horses that we're working with is really key. So that's where we're going to go deeper into those more specific questions in our Q&A on Sunday. So if you have something that you want to ask about your horse, if you're like implementing some of this and you're seeing certain behaviors come up from it, like shoot away. And that's not just in this workshop either. Like we continue this all year round. We're here to help you guys and help your horses and try and build that union so that all the horses out there can have beautiful, loving homes where they're well cared for. I am the unicorn's rainbow girl. I like to believe that all of the horses have beautiful, happy homes where they're well cared for and they're capable of consenting and willingly permitting us to work with them, and they enjoy our time together. That's my big goal. So our giveaways, Sarah started talking about that last night. We have a giveaway for participation. So participation includes like commenting on these lives, whether you're on the replay, like even if you just say #replay where you're from. Yeah, when we have our horses that I think quicker than we do, they're so, yeah, I hear you. Play with a couple of Arabs that are like that. So we have a couple of giveaways over the week, and that is for you participating, whether you're commenting on this live thread, if you're on the replay, #replay, just tell us where you're from if you don't even have, anything to ask, because there's a lot of you guys here, and while I try to keep up with everybody that I have conversations with, it is difficult when you change profile pictures, because that is the main thing that I recognize, especially if you have a profile picture of a horse with you. So, the more I get to know you and your horses, the easier it is for me to help you, and the more like you engage and you comment, the more I will recognize you, and I'll be able to remember some of the things that we've talked about, so that when we talk down the track a little bit more, I can say, oh, that's right, you were asking me about this situation and this is your horse, and so I can give you better advice as well. So make sure you're in here commenting, and like best case scenario is you also win a prize. So we have two $50 vouchers that we're drawing Thursday night and then Friday night, one each night, for completing, like watching these videos and then completing our homework action items. That will get you nominations to it, and that puts you in the draw for $50 towards one of our trainings or courses or whatnot. Samantha from Oxford, England. I love where all you guys are from. It's so exciting. You know, seeing all you guys in snow. I've only been in snow like 4 times in my life. So it's really, I mean, you guys probably don't get excited about the novelty of snow, but yeah, in Brisbane, it's a little bit exciting for me to see you guys playing in snow and seeing your horses playing in snow. I'm going to come and visit. I want to be there. I want to join you. Sarah's never seen snow, so this is what we have. But we have beaches, so I guess something has to make up for the lack of snow. So we want you to have your homework notes out, taking notes, participating, writing your answers down because they're our key takeaways, but adding to your own notes. Thought in Derbyshire. Nice. So the weather is getting more comfortable, hopefully. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the group. We do try to create like a really safe environment for everyone to interact and contribute, but I understand that you can still be a bit nervous, especially if you've like had bad experiences before. So you feel free to private message Sarah or I. If you have questions about your horse and you want to send me through some videos, feel free to do that. Sarah's the good one to ask techie questions about too. I'm not, if you can't find your workbook notes, don't ask me. I can't help you. But if you have some video of your pony, I want to see it. So message us questions. You can either put it into the group or you can put it in a DM to us or email us, whatever works. And then join in our homework thread, because these are our action items. We want you taking steps forward, moving the needle, driving that relationship stronger with your horse and getting a deeper connection. Kathy's in the UK. Snow was fun, but it's gone. Lucy made a snow horse. I'm coming to visit you, Lucy. Hi, Christine. Joining us in between meetings. I better get started then. And Lucy not carrying water anymore. Oh gosh, I took our hoses. Here we go, tangent. Sorry guys, real quick. I took our hoses down to the school and forgot that I'd done it, and then came home tonight to fill my horse's water up and realized I didn't have a hose. So I was like, Beck, quick, come help me bucket water to the horses before I come in and do this live. Need to go to the shops tomorrow. Bunnings, for those of you in Australia. Get me a snag. And some hoses. All right, let's get started. Enough of my Aussie slang for you guys. Oh, okay. So session 2, the signs. So these are like the signs and signals that your horses are going to be giving you, the body language that they're giving you to try and communicate with you. So, Sarah was talking a little bit last night about when I get called out to a problem horse, more often than not, the big dangerous behaviors are the horse trying to communicate something. And that's the same experience that our members have been having that have come through the Stronger Bond workshop with us and have joined us in our memberships, is, unraveling some of those big behaviors. They're finding out what their horse is trying to communicate with them. Bunnings is like a shop with shovels. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a man cave of like outdoor equipment, and you get to buy a sausage sizzle on the way in. It's like an Australian culture thing. So the body languages are quite often become loud and exaggerated because we get told to, there we go, that's better, hardware store, me, it's a shovel shop, I don't know. So these big, loud behaviors are our horses trying to communicate something to us. And, you know, a lot of trainers will be, oh, your horse is just being naughty, push them through it. Or maybe they've started with the subtle signs and you've not recognized them, so they've gotten louder. Or another situation is when, you know, you can see it's happening and you don't know what you should be doing with it, and so it kind of does start just getting worse because you don't know how to address it. So these are those body languages and these signs, and this is most typically I'll get called out for. And just by saying to the horse, I hear you, I hear what you're saying, talk to me, I can significantly de-escalate their behaviors from big, loud, dangerous, difficult behaviors to just like small, subtle ones where they can start trying to tell me what the problem is. To be honest, a lot of the time the problem is pain. So we're looking at ulcers, like sore parts of their body from work, like saddle needs to be refitted. But sometimes, you know, they can just not enjoy work. And so then it's about making that process enjoyable for them as well. One of the other questions that we had last night as well is being able to tell the difference between your horse communicating something and what we might call taking the piss, which is where they're just kind of testing you and challenging you a little bit to see if you're going to follow through on your ask, which is definitely a thing that our horses do. Trust me, I understand. I start beginners on school horses, so, you know, our confident horses can kind of take the mickey with us a little bit and just get away with a few things. So we have some rules that we use to help us keep our ego in check, and we have talked about them previously in some lives. So I'm going to dig them up and actually put them in the unit section rather than going on too large of a tangent tonight. So the first question, this is a fill in the gaps question. Our horses communicate through subtle body language. So our horses communicate through subtle body language. Therefore, it is important we use simple exercises to give our horses a chance to communicate and to help you identify the language your horse is using. I think Sarah got in trouble last night for talking too quick, and I think I might be talking too quick too, so sorry. Our horses communicate through subtle body language. Therefore, it is important we use simple exercises to give our horses a chance to communicate and to help you identify the language your horse is using. So this kind of situation is like if you're asking your horse to do something that is a challenge for you and you're still trying to figure out how to coordinate it, there is no way that you can show up for your horse as a good leader and follow through on your ask and clearly define to your horse what you want. So the way that we work with this, and this is part of making sure that our horse isn't taking the piss with us, is having some super simple exercises that we can strap back to and say, look, I know I can do this exercise and my horse has no reason to say no to it. And so if we come back to that exercise and they're saying no to it, then, you know, we can kind of start to troubleshoot that maybe they are like just a little bit highly strung for the day and are testing and challenging us. But if we come back into that easier exercise and they do it perfectly, then we can address, okay, does my horse understand what I'm asking them to do? Can my horse actually do what I'm asking them to do? Is my horse experiencing pain? Is it experiencing discomfort? Like, what are these contributing factors that are resulting in my horse saying no to this? Is it just because I'm pushing myself to do something that I don't know how to do yet and I'm uncoordinated in? And so now my horse is feeling a little bit insecure because I'm being unco. So just the fact that you can like be a bit clumsy, hi Cindy, can be enough to make your horse stop cooperating. because your signs aren't clear and they get confused by erratic movements. So unless they're used to you being kind of clumsy and a little bit erratic in your movement, they kind of see you as not like kind of taking control of the situation. So we have easier exercises. I wasn't thinking about you at all, Sarah. So we have easier exercises that we can strip back to, that we can coordinate really well, that allows us to figure out if our horse, is testing us. And then if they are testing us, it's a really easy exercise for us to follow through on and just get that relationship re-established. I'm about to go on another tangent and I'm sorry. So there's this like really interesting study about the dominance theory being debunked. And I think that anybody who thinks the dominance theory has been debunked hasn't seen a standard herd situation that can happen in our backyards. So at the moment, we have our school horse that is has kind of been the leader, the boss of the herd. And then we have the 2IC who has always submitted to this boss horse, but is still fairly bossy himself. One of my students has just introduced her horse to the herd, and her horse is boss over the number one boss. Her horse, is the boss over the number one horse, but is submitting to number two horse. And now the whole horse herd dynamics is so out of whack because nobody is actually being the boss. And it's these like inter-horse relationships that happen where 2IC has decided to be the boss over this new horse, but this new horse has decided to be boss over the boss horse, where the dynamics are still playing out between them, where someone is able to tell the other horse to go away, but there's no clear leader anymore. And so it means 2IC pony, he's really taking the piss with my students because he is challenging all of the horses in his herd as well to try and get top boss situation in that herd. So it's a really interesting thing to watch play out at the moment. But what it means is that if you are a little bit unclear and uncomfortable and not following through on what you're asking your horse to do and allowing your horse to kind of push you around a little bit, then they can decide that they're going to take the lead. And one of my things is that, horses don't make good life choices. And I did go through a process where I was like, you are a free animal capable of making your own choices and your own decisions. And it just went really poorly for me. It was my horses taking the lead and being unclear in what was expected of them. And so the behaviors really got out of control. And then they also got really upset and confused because I wasn't being clear in what I was asking them to do. So it's really important that we can set clear and consistent boundaries that we can follow through on with our horses so that we can show that we are leaders that are worth following. It's not about being a leader that can bully something into submission. It's just about being somebody that our horse can trust and kind of say, I'll follow you. You look like somebody I should follow. You look like somebody who's going to look out for me and be careful and nurture me and whatever else we want to provide to our horses. Another example of that is when we first moved to our house, there was a wallaby in our backyard, and Fiddy just dropped his nana over this wallaby. And so being able to go out into the paddock and shoo the wallaby out, Fiddy is typically errs on the side of aggression, and so normally he would be the first one to hunt the wallaby itself, but this situation he decided that he was terrified of it, so he trot up ready to be sending the wallaby out and then get his knickers in a knot and run the other way. And so I was out there watching, what is he running around the paddock for? What is going on out there? And so I eventually got down and could see that there was a wallaby there. So I put myself between him and the wallaby and sent it out. Thankfully, my herding skills translates well to wallabies. And then once the wallaby was out, he like swiftly trotted up to me and gave a big, oh, thank you, and just like relaxed everything. And so that's another situation where we can show up as a good leader for our horse and show that we will protect them and keep them safe. I'm about to have a coughing fit. This is another one of these things that happen when I get excited. Excuse me a sec, guys. Oh, goodness. Okay, Lucy. Dominance only works in one place at one time. My herd leader wasn't the dominant horse in the herd. The other's blue roadsters behind his back. Yeah, definitely. So you take a horse out and, you know, the next horse kind of takes up that lead because somebody has to lead the herd and show them that they're safe. Oh, okay, I'm trying to get my voice back. Okay, so when we use the simple exercises, we can show up as good leaders, follow through on our ask, and then our horses want to follow our lead because we're somebody worth following. So the questions that I should be asking is, what can I do to help my horse? Not just, why is my horse? So a lot of the times we'll get questions like, you know, why does my horse buck? Why does my horse kick? Why does my horse bite? Why does my horse do this? And to get the right answer, we have to ask the right question. So if you try and ask, I don't do, Cindy, that's because I have an editing tool so that I don't start coughing. But you're right, I didn't start coughing in our podcast session because you were doing a lot of the talking for me and I just got to ask questions. So we don't just want to say, why does my horse do such and such? We want to say, how can I help my horse? So a situation that I've had is, why does my horse kick when I try to pick its leg up? Yeah, that's true. I haven't told anybody that Cindy's on the podcast. Surprise! 2 weeks. So a situation that this has happened is, why does my horse kick me when I try to pick its leg up? And so if we ask, what can I do to help my horse? Oh, timestamp B. What can I do to help my horse? So instead of trying to pull their leg up off the ground, something that we can do is teach them to target. Another thing that I do is help them to relax the muscles so that they can lift their leg. I'm going to run out of water. And then what we can kind of find out is that part of the reason why our horse didn't want to pick its leg up is because it has a sore leg from stifle lock that it gets. And it's had people not ask, how can I help my horse? And has just reefed their leg up past the stifle lock. Is it gin? I wish it was gin. I'm trying to keep my head screwed on straight and only give you guys coughing fits instead of too bad weird Katie tangents. So another situation is, why does my horse bite or nip? So a lot of the times that our horse is biting or nipping, it's them trying to communicate something to us. And if we ask, how do I help my horse with this problem of biting or nipping, we can show them that it's a way, like we're listening to them, that they can communicate to us, and we just kind of flip that script on its head and we say, you can lick us instead. And so we can help our horses find a way of communicating and consenting our ask and telling us if they're overwhelmed or stressed, telling us if they're not coping emotionally. And so we have those tools. Sorry. And then instead of them biting, we can teach them to lick us. So when you're dealing with a problem that your horse is having, don't make the first question you ask, why does my horse do this? Make the first question you ask, what can I do to help my horse? How can I get this communication happening clearer so that they don't feel like they have to escalate their behaviors to get their message across to us? So poor behavior, timestamp C, poor behavior results from pain, fear, inability to communicate, your loss of confidence in your ability to read your horse. So these are 4 main areas that we've identified as poor behavioral triggers. Pain is obviously a big one. That's why our first and foremost principle that we work off is first do no harm. And so we work with our body workers, our farrier, our saddle fitters, our bit fitters, and our vets to ensure the work that we're doing doesn't create problems for our horses. So we want to make sure that when we're working them for soundness, not ribbons. When they're giving us behavioral problems, we're checking out the source and not just trying to band-aid it with gadgets. Different situations like that. Like I've been horse shopping with my students recently, and there is not many horses out there that would pass what I would consider sound. And it's because, we are sitting on them, and gravity has its way and it stresses their back, and we have to ride them in a way that means that they can kind of lift into us and carry us without it creating pain on them. And then obviously we put bits in their mouths and saddles on their back, and if we're not considerate of what we're doing with our horses, we over time are going to create concussion on their body, which creates pain. I carried my niece on my back for 5 minutes the other day. I was like, ooh, I know what the horses feel like now. And it can just be like a niggle in the wrong spot that, is the saddle just not sitting right? Or it can be, one of our people in the group, our bit fitter, like for us, the way that we were taught to fit bits when I was going through my training, all of those bit fitting kind of rules have basically been thrown out the window and proven that they actually create more discomfort to the horse. So making sure that the bit itself isn't causing wounds, making sure that their teeth are up to date and not causing ulcers in the sides of their mouth. All of those things can be an underlying cause for your horse trying to communicate that they're having a problem. So fear is a big one, and we were talking, my horse tends on the aggressive side, and there was someone else in here talking about their horse that tends on the aggressive side as well. Often we don't think about aggression as a horse being fearful, but it's exactly the same as that kind of spooky temperament. Yeah, they're feeling fear and they're running away from something that they're scared of, so they're spooking. Same thing as the aggressive horses. It's just that they have the self-assurance and the confidence that they can actually sort out the thing that they're scared of. So if they're scared of us, they feel confident that they can, put us in our place and throw us out of the road. So, poor behavior, whether it's spookiness or aggression, we do need to identify, what is the thing that is making them lack security. So that can be them lacking security in the relationship with us, whether they trust us to do the right thing by us, whether they trust us to communicate effectively to them and listen to them, whether they trust us, if we've overfaced them before or put them in situations where they've hurt themselves. So making sure that every experience that you have for your horse, you're creating positive experiences where they know how to deal with it, helps to build that relationship and that bond with us, and then that in itself de-escalates some behaviors. So one of the things that we have in our trainings is our horse personality. I know that like Pat Pirelli and that have their own ones, their horsenality We have ones that I talk about, which is like horses being on kind of a spectrum of spooky to aggressive, and having a mental break on what's the other ends of the spectrum, Sarah? Having a mental break. And so their behaviors when escalated are out in this red zone of where they're not feeling secure, and like we're supporting them through their training process. And as we go through this training process of developing connection, secure attachments, that's it, responsivity. Thank you. As we're going through this process of building secure attachments and relationships and connections and building up their confidence and their trust in us, and setting boundaries but then reconnecting and working through our exercises that way, we're kind of bringing our horses more into this green zone of, what does their personality look like when they feel safe, secure, connected, and engaged and enjoying the process. Because we're just looking at, the same horse, but it's just not coping with its environment, or, maybe its pain load or its tolerance or its previous experiences. There's plenty of reasons why our horse might go out into that red zone. So the question here of overfacing, I think I understand what you mean, but new terminology. So it's like if, you've just had your horse in the backyard and not done anything with it, and then you decide that you're going to take it for a trail ride to the beach. So I would call that overfacing your horse if they've never seen sand before, if they've never seen waves before, if they haven't left their paddock for 5-6 years, because you're changing so many factors in their ability to feel safe and secure. So a horse can feel like the security in itself, which is where they have confidence in themselves. They can feel security in their relationships with us, so that's where they feel safe when we're with them. They can feel security in their relationships with other horses, so we're talking about separation anxiety and herd bound here, because they feel safe with their herd. And horses can feel safe in their environment. So if we're creating a safe and secure environment where our horses can relax, then they want to return to that environment when they're stressed. So, when we take our horses out to a competition, showing them that or a trail ride, showing them that they're going to come home is really important, because they're coming back to that place where they feel safe after we've introduced them to an unknown environment. So over-facing a horse is, overwhelming them with too many, environmental triggers at once, and also not having the process and the coping mechanisms installed first. So like a lot of our stuff, we do the trainings in our safe, secure environment first, and then, our challenge might be introducing something new to them, like a new exercise or like a new game. If we're going to introduce a ball or a balloon, or I have an inflatable kangaroo. So any of those things, we kind of introduce one at a time instead of changing lots of factors at once and expecting them to cope, so that when we change that one thing, we can guide them through that process and show them how to deal with it, how to so the other end of that spectrum that we were talking about with spookiness is we can make horses more confident by creating curiosity in the things that they're scared of. And so I can bring my inflatable kangaroo down to the horses, and I can show them how to investigate something that's scary and unknown, so that if I then go into an environment and they see something they've never seen before, they can go and investigate it. And we actually got some feedback on one of these tools recently with one of my friends who's a show jumper. She was like, I was listening to your training about confidence through curiosity, and so I started doing it with my mare, and now I take her out show jumping and she drags me around the arena to look at all the show jump fills. I was like, well, I guess it's working. So showing a horse that is spooky by nature how to investigate the things that they're scared of builds their confidence. And so then we're giving them the tools to process and deal with their fear. So it just really depends on, the horse that you have. Like, is their fear based on the horse-human relationship? Is their fear based on environmental triggers? Is their fear based on not ever staying in one place? So that's a big thing for horses. Horses are one of those kind of commodity style animals that can get sold on house to house to house because they're not fitting into anywhere in particular. And the problem is that when the more houses they go to, the more disconnected they become. So the harder it is for them to settle in and find a place where they belong, because they're just waiting to be moved on to the next house again. So that is a fear, a very relevant fear that our horses can experience, that of itself. So inability to communicate. As I was talking about, a lot of our horses' problems can be that they're trying to communicate something and we're not hearing it. So giving them the tools to communicate that so that they don't have to escalate their behavior. And a lot of our horses, they get upset if they hurt us. And so escalating their behavior to tell us that they're in pain actually stresses them as well. And that's where they can really flip their lid, drop their lolly, because not only are they in pain, but they're also scared that their reaction to pain is going to hurt us. And so we just totally lose them mentally in that process. So having a process where we can show our horses how they can communicate their needs to us, how they can consent our ask, how they can show us if they're having problems, how they can, even just say yes or no. My horse has the biggest opinions about everything. And what started as a horse that was very aggressive about everything, he just had really strong opinions. So now he tells me whether or not he wants a rug, which brush he wants to use, what game we're going to play, whether he needs a little break to reconnect and have some emotional support, or whether he's ready to go into a working exercise. So, and if you think about the way that trainers work, that is what makes a horse dangerous, is that they're saying, I don't want you to do that to me. That makes a dangerous horse. Now really sit and think on that. A horse should be allowed to say that they're overwhelmed, or they're stressed, or they're scared, or they don't want a heavy winter rug on during a hot summer's day. They should be allowed to have some control over what happens to them. Some horses don't care, and they don't really have a strong opinion, and they're quite happy to just go along with the ride. And they do typically turn out to be like those safe beginner school horses and that kind of thing, because they're quite happy to just ignore you bouncing around on their back. But some horses do have big opinions, and them voicing it is not the part that makes them dangerous. Forcing them to do things that hurt them or that they don't like, and them learning that they can, get out of it by hurting us back, is what's going to make them dangerous. And so we try to strip back those big behavioral issues and allow them to actually communicate with us and consent what we're asking, and so we can catch those behaviors before they're dangerous. Okay, so putting more on than they can cope. My horse knew when he met me that he could tell me what's wrong. It took me a wee while to see it. Yeah, beautiful. Aha moment for Cindy. This is what happened the other day. We took Shelby to our friends and she freaked. Oh, let me get on it. Oh, poor love. So that's a situation if you're taking your horse into a new environment and it's a bit stressful for them, you don't have to ride them. It's perfectly okay to let them go and explore their environment and then settle in. And the way that we kind of build up onto the ridden stuff is that they can start consenting things and saying that they're ready for us to ride them. Cindy, she's come a long way. Umbrellas are a novelty now. Oh, Lucy, I love that you think this is profound. Sometimes I forget that what we do is kind of a bit outrageous to some people. My 11-year-old had 9 previous owners before I got him 4 years ago. Poor love. It can be so hard, hey? I understand that not all temperament's meant to get along with all personalities, but everything deserves to feel loved and accepted and have a safe place to live. Sarah, loving it. I have so many of my own moments. Yay! That's so funny. It's the balance between giving horses opinion and being that leader that my horse can trust, that I can struggle. Oh, it's so hard. Trust me. Like, you don't just go, nailed it, and then your relationship is perfect for all of eternity, because it's the same as like personal relationships, right? Like, you get comfortable with each other and you fall into each other's habits, and then something will come up and you kind of start getting like where you don't mesh the same well anymore. You start getting that friction, and so it's finding your way through those periods of friction with your horse. When you do it right, you get closer. You get like a stronger bond. You can ask more of them, and you can trust them more. When it doesn't quite pan out the way you hoped it would, then you kind of get that disconnect, and you get more friction, and you just need a little bit of extra support to kind of feel back into that place where you can kind of come back together again. It is tricky. I totally hear you. So your loss of confidence in your ability to read your horse. I know that this is something that a lot of our people struggle with, because you get told that you're creating dangerous horses because you're being too soft, and then you lose confidence in yourself and that you're doing the right thing. And it's really the fact that you've lost the confidence in yourself. That means that you no longer show up as a good leader. And so it's really important that you understand your own values and your own philosophy, and know why you want a softer, gentler approach. Like, it could be a situation like Cindy, where you have a super sensitive mare, so that has experienced trauma, and same with Zodi, where if you were to approach them with the standard natural horsemanship techniques, you would just shatter them. And there are still horses that they're just not the ones that people talk about, that don't succeed in natural horsemanship tendencies. Like, you can have a trainer be like, this is the way to do it, this is the only way to do it, there are no other options. If you try any other way, you're creating dangerous horses. That's still creating dangerous horses. They just don't tell you about them. And so it's really important to be true to yourself in the way that you want to work with your horse. And then you kind of take on these trainings and the way they work, and try and figure out what, like, underneath all of, we do see a lot of submission-based training in natural horsemanship. So underneath all of this submission-based training, what are they actually trying to achieve? And how can I do that with my horse in a way that builds communication? So boundaries, circle around and reconnect. Boundaries, circle around and reconnect. It's not boundary, 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 wall, wall, wall. You're not allowed to love on your horse. You're not allowed to pat on your horse. You're not allowed to emotionally connect with your horse. You're never allowed to treat it. It's, these are my expectations of you. These expectations are there so that I don't get hurt, because you are a big animal and you can hurt me. And sometimes you do. And then set that boundary and say, but I still love you. Like, you're still my bestie. Come in here, have a cuddle, have a scratch. And so we don't want to just keep separating ourselves from them to try and quell behaviors that we don't like. We just say, no, not accepting that behavior. Here's a tool that we can share with you to help your horse deal with that behavior, process it, work through it, get to the other side. And then once you're kind of there, then you can come back in and reconnect and become friends again. So Yvonne, we moved to a new yard 2 weeks ago and has become unbearable, rearing, lashing out, super hyper. Top it off, matters were made worse by the landlady insisting we had to buy her haylage. Just high and digestible. Oh, jeez. Made him worse again. Needless to say, we moved back to our regular yeah. And that happens. Like, we definitely have had that process with some of our members in here where they've moved their horse and that's just not been right, or they've been somewhere and they've been having behavioural issues and they've moved them to a new yard and it's better. Environment is so important. Like, if you think about a time that you've struggled with stress or emotions and not being able to process things well, you're in like a stressful job or under a stressful boss or had a terrible drive to work, that creates stress. So maybe, you know, even having a house that isn't like up to scratch with living standards, that kind of thing, those stressful environments, or like living with somebody that is creating stress in you and making you feel unsafe, these environmental conditions are really important to how well our horses are coping with stress and processing it. And we really don't, I think, pay enough attention to that. Like, that's why one of our core philosophy is first, do no harm. So make sure that your training environment is safe for your horse and they feel safe in it. One of the things is that I had with Zodi is that he had a bad first experience, so he doesn't trust people. And when he was first trying to get to that place of trusting people, he would literally be trying to climb through a fence to go away as soon as he saw a person. So one of the things that I did when he came to my place is he gets fed in the same place every night. And so he actually developed his first secure relationship with that area of my paddock more so than me or my horse. Because he's like, this is where I'm safe. This is where I get fed every night. Being fed is a safe place. I can relax while I'm eating. I'm safe to eat. And so when I was doing my training with him at Liberty in the paddock, anytime that he felt stressed or overwhelmed by a cue or an ask, he would actually go to that place where he was fed. And he would stand there and he would defrag and process his stress and his emotion. And I'd just wait for him to circle back around and ask for him to reconnect with me. And so I don't think we put enough emphasis on how much an environment can, you know, make our horse worse, but it can also make our horse better if we use it right. Tanya, thank you for saying that. I lost all confidence the other day because my horse wouldn't load onto a float, but at one stage he walked over to me, put his head into my put-in and took a big breath. It was then I changed my goal to just the 2 feet on the ramp, but I felt like I did the wrong thing by letting him get away with not going on. Yeah, totally. And you will be told by a lot of trainers that you did do the wrong thing, but we want a relaxed horse that is consenting going on the float, and there's reasons why they don't want to go on a float. You know, one of my horses, like when I was a kid, didn't want to go on a float because it fell over in a float one time. And so, you know, our horses are telling us things. They have reasons for telling us these things. And because we're the ones that are trying to get our horses to do these things that they don't want to be doing, it really is up to us to listen to them when they're saying, hey, like, foot off the pedal a little bit, like, I need a bit of support here. And then we can take it at their pace and not expect, you know, them to be hitting it at our pace. Okay, so signs your horse may need some emotional support. So that's question D. The answers are pushiness, lack of confidence, shutting down, lashing out, nipping and mouthing. I'm going to add a couple of extra ones that have come up for us recently that we're starting to recognize. They won't give you eye contact. So a horse that is stressed by your ask and needs emotional support, it won't give you eye contact, and they will also turn away from you. And so these are like the more subtle signs that happen before we get the bigger signs. And a sign that your horse is inviting you for more emotional contact can actually be the nipping and the biting. Is that's them trying to engage with you. And when we turn the nipping and the biting into licking, then we're also filling their emotional cup at the same time. And some of the other things that they can be doing is, you know, turning their head around to like kind of bite at different areas of their body, and that's them asking us to scratch them. Like dropping their ear for us to scratch their ear, play with their lips, like some of the horses that really like physical contact will give you very, like for horse, very loud cues. But for us, we're like, oh, my horse is just chasing flies. It's like being a weirdo, doing some weird things over here. But what they're actually doing is they're inviting us to, start grooming them and having that bonding process with them. So signs that your horse may need more emotional support. These are kind of the extremes of those spectrums of personality that we were talking about. Your pushy horses tend to be like your bigger horses, like Persians, Irish drafts, anything that deals with life by using their body weight against it. So, they tend not to trip into flight so much, so they do make more reliable horses for like trails and that kind of thing. But when they need that connection and they need that support, they tend to push over the top of us and push into us and push us around a little bit. So coming into our space without an invitation can be a sign that we need to set some more appropriate boundaries, and then circle around and reconnect. Like, this is the behavior that I expect of you, but I will still love on you and I will still invite you into my space. It's just that you can't be pushing me around all the time. Our horses who lack confidence. So I'm just trying to think of, we're working with so many horses at the moment that have been building confidence that I kind of forget where they start. So that's why we love doing the Stronger Bond as well, is just remembering where you guys are at when you start this process. It can feel so foreign. So one of the horses that I can think of off the top of my head that was lacking confidence was Phoenix, who had just gone to a new owner. So he'd been with his previous owner his whole life. So first time with a new owner, first time off the property he was born onto, and first time meeting a pig. And so he really lacked a lot of confidence in himself and was super, super flighty and highly strung. The first training session that we had together, she called me out and she wanted a ridden lesson and she couldn't catch him. And when she was going around the paddock trying to catch him, I thought that he was going to jump the fence out of the paddock. And so that first training session really was about, making him feel safe in his environment again. And building that relationship and connection into his new owner. And so it didn't take long, through that first training session to kind of bring him down and consent and connect and build that confidence with his owner again. And so then, after I think maybe 2 or 3 training sessions, I think it was the second training session, we decided that the main trigger for his loss of confidence was the pig. And then we did our confidence through curiosity training to get him confident in how he should approach the pig, even though he's terrified of it. Because pigs smell. Horses don't like pig smell. Sorry, I'm going to start coughing again. Apparently I've been excited again. So one of the things that we've talked about on previous Stronger Bond workshops was that one thing that I couldn't fix was horses being scared of pigs. Turns out I can fix that too. And it's not really the fact that I'm fixing it, it's more to do with the processes of how we show our horses to deal with their stress and their fear. Okay. I'm going to come back to some of these questions so that I can wrap up and not keep you on the whole line for the next 3 hours. So shutting down, we do have our training in the unit section in the podcast on shutting down. And that tends to be, and Sarah talked about it a little bit last night, that tends to be our horses that tend to go more into that freeze instead of the fight or flight. And they do tend to be our more school horse type because they are safer. But there's only so far, you can kind of push them when they've shut down and they've disconnected before they can't control their behavior anymore and they spook. And it tends to be, the horses that are we're told that they're bomb-proof, and then you hear, oh, my horse has never done that before. I don't know where that behavior came from. They tend to be the ones that are kind of like dissociating from that experience. It's what that shutdown experience is they disconnect from that experience, and so they're no longer reacting to it. So it can be something as simple as like they're standing up perfectly for you to mount and you hop on and they just explode because they're kind of like holding it all together, like I'm stressed, and then you swinging into the saddle is the last point of trigger where they just explode. And so when we go through that process of consent and we keep the horse connected and engaged with us, they tell us to stop before we hit that trigger point for them. Another thing, like they tend to be sort of spooky with weird objects that can come up. So that same experience of like sacking them out, we call it here in Australia, I don't know what they call it in other places, bagging them out, where you kind of like throw different things at them and tell them not to move, doesn't mean that they are processing their fear. Doesn't mean that they're emotionally coping with the stress. It just means that we've shown them not to react. And so we can throw different triggers at them and tell them not to react to it, but that doesn't mean that they're not scared. If we can teach them confidence, flooding. If we can teach them confidence through curiosity, then it doesn't matter what they're scared of. They just know how to investigate that thing that they're scared of. And then if it's super scary, like the most scary thing that they'll ever see, like a pig, or one of the other things that I had when I was a kid and I didn't have this training was a bubble machine starting up in Sideshow Alley at the show, and the bubbles coming across the showgrounds and popping on my horse's nose. Lost his lolly over that one. If we can show them what they're supposed to do and we can guide them through that process of investigating scary things, if we show them something really, really, really scary, then and they're too scared to investigate it themselves, then we've kind of like shown them the process. So we've been able to show up as a leader, somebody worth trusting and following, so they can say, no, I'm too scared to go and look at that myself, but you take me, you guide me through this process. And they'll look to us to kind of take the lead over there and say, look, it's not that bad, it's not going to hurt you, here's how you investigate it, see, it makes this noise. And then they get really chuffed with themselves. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it. A lot of my students will laugh at me because of the horses that I've started basically like broken in or green, but I didn't know if I could get this with like older horses because it can be kind of hard to get that breakthrough with them, but I got it recently with Fitty, is that they give you like a oh they give me like a little oh, like a little excited whinny when they figure something out, or like they get chuffed with themselves because they've put like a good effort into their job. So it can be the same thing when you teach them that they can approach something that they're scared of and how to approach it. They get like chuffed with themselves because they're like, oh, look at me, I'm so brave. It's so cute to hear, hey. And the first time my horse started doing it, I was like, what is going on? Why is my horse doing this to me? But since then, like pretty much all the horses I break in do it, and I've just started getting it out of Fitty, and it's just, our horse is getting excited to get answers right and to learn and, overcome fear and movement to feel good and to have like these positive experiences. They actually can enjoy it, and they actually do, and they do give us these signals that tell us that we're on the right track. We just have to listen to it. So lashing out, so that is definitely like more towards that aggressive spectrum where sorry, what they do. So you know how they whinny and they it's more of like a oh. I don't know if I can explain it properly. We're gonna have to video Rafi doing it and show you guys, because he does it every single time I dismount him, and so we will most likely be able to get out of him. So lashing out, like, that's more where my horse tends to go when he is insecure in his relationships or his environment. Like, he's quite happy to take on whatever it is that he's scared of. So, you know, you get the rearing, the striking, the biting, the dirty phone calls. Yeah. My ponies give me dirty phone calls. So the horses that are more likely to feel like they can take on whatever they're scared of, they give us the really scary behaviors. And so it's really about developing those secure relationships and those attachments first. So when I first started with Fitty, this is another long tangent. Okay, we're going to skip the short and the long of it. After I had a fresh Caesar, and Fitty had really escalated his bullying and his aggressiveness, and I was really lacking confidence in myself and my body and how I was going to deal with it. I was scared that I'd have to get rid of him because he was dangerous for me to have around a child. And so that was that lashing out behavior. And so it is perfectly fine when you have an unsafe horse to use protected contact. So putting, you know, a fence between you and that horse and start building a relationship that way. I spent, I think, 4 months sitting with him while he was eating to build in relaxation. So I had somewhere to work from. And his relaxation cues are also in the unit section. And that process of getting him into a state of relaxation and then developing consent and connection and choice and starting to get him to deal with his frustration, setting boundaries, but reconnecting. All of those things did de-escalate the lashing out. Another thing that tends to work really well for aggressive horses is the clicker training, because it can be the frustration from the anti-dopamine that leads to the aggression. And so just reach out if you've got one of these horses, because they, you know, can be a little bit more dangerous. Like, I find that the spooky ones kind of are less dangerous because they're more likely to run away from you than at you. So if you do have one of those horses, just let us know so that, you know, we're giving you appropriate advice and we're not putting you in unsafe situations. And then nipping and mouthing. Yeah, Andrea, put a fence between you and your horse for a while. That's perfectly fine. Like, you can do most of our foundational exercises with a fence between you and building that communication with, you know, your horse being able to take itself away and learn how to deal with its emotions before it circles back around and reconnects, and that way you are safe. And that's the most important thing. Yeah, we do use target training. So nipping and mouthing is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. A lot of the people that come through have horses that nip and mouth. Horses communicate with their mouths. So, you know, we do tell them that it's not appropriate for them to bite us or nip at us, but we also encourage that interaction, and we turn the nipping into licking. And so then we find that we can provide that emotional support and fill their bucket. Some horses are just looking at it as a way to engage and play with us. So, you know, that typical just smack them in the mouth, like those kinds of horses, it just escalates the nipping, because they're like, I'm going to bite you before you can get me. And so we want to have, you know, a way that we can work with horses that are trying to engage us in play, but also still stop the nipping. So nipping and mouthing is definitely a way that our horse is trying to communicate with us. but we can turn it into more conducive ways of interacting with us. You know, end of the day, we're people, and our horses can't interact with us the way that it interacts with other horses. So we can say, like, your communication is perfectly valid, and I appreciate what you're telling me, but if you do it that way, you're going to hurt me, and you might put me in hospital. So redirect that energy into a different method of communicating that to me, and then we can move forward together in happy rainbow unicorn partnership. Another quick side note before we wrap up. I took over a riding school end of last year, and one of the things I said to Sarah was like, it'll be really interesting to see how I manage to stick to our training philosophy when I have like actual workhorses. And so I've done a lot of work, like our foundational work with building that connection and that relationship. And my little team of schoolies got really engaged and willing and excited. So they went through that process of like, ooh, this is fun. It's fun to teach beginners how to ride. But then, you know, obviously beginners are very messy, and so sometimes they'll hit their back a little bit harder, and, you know, just overall can make that experience a little bit more uncomfortable for the horses. And I was a little bit lazy 2 weeks ago, and I only wanted to bring one horse in. I didn't want to have to get two ready. And I got through 2.5 of my lessons before that little mare started kind of nibbling at me. She's like, I am so done. You need to get these bloody beginners off me and turn me out before I just like am just completely done and dusted. So it's still good to like have these workhorses and have this communication, because now I know, great, I can't be lazy. I need to make sure that these school horses are doing a maximum of 2 beginners a day, because more than that and they're done, they're over it. And it's better that I know that, because she was nibbling at me and she felt like she could communicate that to me, and that I could listen to her, and that I took it as that I need to take the pressure off her, then she's being naughty, because it means that, you know, that issue of having too many beginner riders over her isn't going to escalate over the year into like a really sour, unhappy horse, you know. And it means that I just juggle the horses better and make sure that none of them are getting burnt out on beginner riders. And it may mean initially that I take on less students, and that's one of the things that I have been, is I've not actively been promoting, because I want the horses to get comfortable with the increase in workload, instead of like just completely overwhelmed and not coping and just grumpy and sour and unhappy in their role. Because, you know, school horses are so special to be able to have so many different people on their back, and just to keep doing as they're told, you know, just give a little bit of sass and challenge to make sure that, you know, my riders are actually putting effort in and not just sitting on them like potatoes, but, you know, putting a bit of effort into making sure that they're contributing to the relationship. They're just so special. And so I'm glad that this like philosophy is translating really well into workhorses as well, because my horses are not workhorses. Did you inherit the horses with the riding school? Sort of. There's a few logistics going on in the background. I will be buying them. Hopefully. We've got a bit of a lease period to work through yet, and then if it all works out, then yeah, buying it. Exciting. So I'm gonna stop talking, because it has been a really long time already, and we'll just quickly review our homework notes. So action: what signs is your horse showing you? So hopefully in all of those ramblings, you got plenty of examples that you might be able to go, oh, that's my horse, that's what my horse is doing to me, and understand how they're trying to communicate with you through their body languages. And if not, like, just send us some video, or you know, just message us, like, this is what my horse is doing. I can't guarantee that I would be able to solve it, because believe it or not, sending me a message, my horse is biting me. I don't have enough backstory to help you. So I do need to get to know you and your horse and their temperament, their personality, their likes, their dislikes. So hopefully throughout the process of this week, you'll be able to start sorting some of those things out for yourself. So what signs is your horse showing you? And then you can share that in our action item. And we can get to know you and your horses a little bit more. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to be here again. So you're going to have to put up with my tangents and my stories again to talk about your horse's wants and needs. Hi, Melanie. You caught us right at the end. But it's a fun one, I think. I had fun. I only had 2 coughing fits, maybe 3, not sure. I think I need a whole jug of water for tomorrow night to make sure I can get through it. Yeah. Oh, I think actually last time we did Stronger Bond, I made up a tea to try and, with honey, to try and make sure I didn't start coughing. So I'll try to remember to do that last night. I thought my coughing was fixed, but I think it's just when I get excited. Okay, anyway, enough from me. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely night wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us and coming in and saying hi and telling us about your horses. And I will see you tomorrow night with our talk about your horse's wants and needs. Thanks. Bye.